back, Guardians, and today we touch up on our fallen lore, the Devil Splicers. Now, as far as everyone probably knows, the Devil Splicers belong to the House of Devils. They are the fallen, and they are just all around obsessed with Siva, as seen by their physical mutations. The reasoning for this drive to become more and more machine-like is because they realized that while they were worshipping Siva, they could become more like their machine god. So they went through rapid mutations, rapid enhancements. They just kept upgrading over and over again until they finally reached what they thought was okay. And even then, they probably even upgraded more. That's what Devil Splicers are. They're just really radical sect of the Fallen House. And they are the people that keep on trying to discover new and improved ways to enhance themselves, because the Fallen are a pretty weak race and they really don't have anything on the Guardians, except when they have Siva. The Devil Splicers had a reasoning for what they had done. You see, the House of Devils was left to nothing. We, the Guardians, had taken out their Kel, we'd taken out the Archon, we'd taken out their Prime Servitor. And what left is there to say about the House of Devils? That's why in the beginning of the Rise of Iron DLC, you come across Sepix Perfected, the Devil Splicers' last attempt to resurrect their Prime Servitor. However, there's a disgraced machine priest called Aksis. He returned to claim the title of the Archon and finally bring leadership back into the Devils. This was after you've killed pretty much everyone in the ranks. With Aksis in power, he had the motivation to go into the Cosmodrome and keep on trying to pillage and find pieces of Golden Age technology, hopefully to turn the tide in the war against the Guardians. If everyone knows the story, you can already guess that the Devil Splicers had found what they were looking for. They found one of the most dangerous pieces of Golden Age technology, nanotechnology, Siva, sealed away by the Iron Lords centuries ago. While most people within the House of Devils believed they had found a new god to worship, there was a younger, more ambitious, more radical part of the Devils that saw this technology as something else. Something as a way of transforming themselves, something as a way of reaching godlike levels. Transcendence, pretty much. They believed they could use Siva to become more like the gods. Aksis was first to do so. He managed to reach more machine than he had fallen, becoming obsessed with Siva, achieving what the Splicers had long endeavored, freedom from the substance ether. Now, if you don't know what ether is, that is the way that Fallen obtain their nutrients. It's pretty much like their life force. And in order to have these things, you realize that if you play Destiny a good amount, whenever there is a little servitor floating around the other Fallen, they tend to glow a different color. That's because they are obtaining the life force. That's how they survive. That's why the Prime Servitor is so important, and that's why they were scrambling to get it up and working. However, with Aksis becoming no longer Fallen, he no longer needed that ether. He instead just needed to work on improving himself, which proved to be quite grotesque in the way he changed himself. After Aksis had reached that point, Splicers under Aksis had then used Siva to bring back Devil's Prime Servitor, Sepix. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. They didn't really know what they were doing with Sepix Prime. They had no idea. They just had this technology in their hands, but they had no means of controlling it. That's when the Fallen had used their heads for once and actually went to Mars. They took a risk with the Cabal. They learned from Clovis Bray, from the archives, that Siva can be used in different ways. They learned a basic understanding of what they could do. And that's when the Cabal drove them away, but what's the point? They've already learned what they had wanted. However, they could have learned more, which could have proved devastating, but they didn't. So we'd like to thank the Cabal for that, but moving forward. Using the newfound knowledge, the Fallen had been able to find Site 6. If you all know who Site 6 is, that is the original replication center for Siva. This is located in the Plaguelands. They were able to reactivate it and produce more for themselves, twisting the land into their main base of operations. That is where you get the Plaguelands from. That is why everything looks so machine. While learning about Siva, the Devil Splicers also learned about the Iron Lords that had been sealed away within Siva. They believed they could learn more about Siva from the Iron Lords. They believed that they could break into the Iron Lord's temple and somehow extract more knowledge. That was their way of thinking. Now, with the Force of Devils under Sepix perfected, the Fallen hoped to gain more knowledge, and destroy the temple to ensure that the Guardians could not find a way to stop them. However, Lord Saladin learned of their plan and led the attack, and the temple would begin conflict called the Siva Crisis. This is what you see in the beginning of all those cinematics back when it was announced. With Lord Saladin standing in front of the wall, that was the original attack to find more knowledge. Meanwhile, the Devils and their Splicers breached the Cosmodrome wall and gained entry to the Plague Lands by melting it. With Siva, the Devils were able to drive the House of Kings and the Hive out of their holdouts, leaving the majority of Old Russia under the Devils' control, though the Hive continued to harass them as you see in the Plague Lands. It's not that bad, however. The Devils have gained so much land that it's not even worth even talking about how well this turned out for them. And this is what brings us to what happens during the storyline, the very, very, very short story that is within the Rise of Iron, where you break into Site 6, you somewhat kill the Iron Lords again, and shutting down Siva. You defeated the remnants and destroyed the replication center. This prevented the Devil Splicers from making any more Siva. However, the Splicers still had a substantial amount of Siva left. With Aksis and Sepik still alive, the Devil Splicers remained a significant threat. As this was all going on, the Devil Splicers were still trying to become closer to the gods. They recklessly began experiments to destroy their enemies and create new weapons. Under the direction of Kovic, Splicer Priest, the Splicers began to capture and experiment on the Hive, either to enslave the Hive or harness their biology. It doesn't really matter, they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. The Hive furiously began to all-out war on the Splicers. The Guardians intervened to prevent the Splicers from getting control of the Hive or to create the weapons, as they feared such experiments could mean the end of the last city. The Guardians were able to stop the Splicers by killing Kovic and putting a stop to the assaults on the moon for more test subjects. Ultimately, the power of the Devil Splicers came to an end as you, Guardian, now the new generation of Iron Lords, attacked the Devil Splicers, killed second-in-command Vostok the Archpriest, destroyed Sepix for good, destroyed the siege engines, and finally, their leader, the Archon Prime, Aksis, in his own perfection complex. With Aksis gone, you and the new Iron Lords had ended the Siva-mutated Devil Splicers, and ultimately the Siva Crisis, all on your own. Is that the last time we'll see the Devil Splicers? Most likely. You destroyed the replication center for Siva. Aksis, the leader who was most likely the highest in command and the most powerful Fallen to ever live, is no longer there. There's no one to lead the House of Devils. As far as I can tell, the House of Devils will slowly die off. That's the last time you're going to hear of them. Until Destiny, or Bungie, decides to create yet another DLC, somehow managing to get the Fallen up and working again. But until then, I don't believe that will happen anytime soon. But anyways, that's been it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later, Guardians.